Let's take a look at the two exercises that we did this morning for the bombshell before we put it into practice. I think if you can understand the pieces and components. So we're dancing it from a double reverse spin. You're already on your right foot when you dance the bombshell. But what I want you to practice is this action of dancing the ronde. And we'll do a full ronde. We'll do it taking the leg front, side, back, or ronde de jambe as we call it in ballet. So that you can get the timing feeling of pushing from one foot to the other and using the push off to initiate the ronde. The reason I want to do this is to give you a piece to practice by itself, having some energy. So from here, my energy is coming from the movement of my weight and the push off. The other thing I'm practicing here then is this ronde, keeping the hip area free. One of the problems that was happening was that the hip was moving with the foot. So where we articulate in our hip, that needs to be free. Now ballet dancers do these ronde de jambes all the time at the bar as an exercise. And there we have the leg turned out. But we're trying to work freely from the hip joint. So it's important from the forward action that you don't take the hip with the leg, that you separate. And then on the side action, if I try to reach out too far, my hip will go with me and I'll fall over. So I'm just feeling that crease in the hip. The other thing is that as the foot accomplishes that second position, the side position, that's when you start to soften the knee, bring the thighs towards each other. From the back then, I push off and use that splash to start my ronde and then bring it in. Bring it in. And I'll try to reach it around so far to the back. Now the ladies' ronde is happening on the same foot and on the same leg, right, on the right foot. So this is the same foot figure. So we'll talk about that in a minute. We really didn't talk about that early today. If the lady is doing something a little bit different than the man. So there the energy is coming from the weight transfer and the push off and the fall. When we're actually dancing this figure, we have two sources of energy. We have rotation and we have the dropping of weight. So the man is already on his right foot at the completion of the double reverse spin. We are going to be continuing the rotation. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the practice exercise is just to drop. So now our energy is coming from the drop. So we always have to have some place to produce it from. So then I'll carry on from the drop. So you're up. Make sure the heels are together. You drop into the right leg. Make sure to keep the hip joint soft. Collect the leg underneath. Pull the penny with this toe and dance the slip pivot. Now at this moment I'm not practicing it with the rotation. I'm just practicing the dropping action and then the slip pivot. We'll talk about the ladies' part in a moment because it's helpful for you to also understand what the girl is doing. I should have thought about this before. I've got bare feet, I don't know if I can really turn. But then you can start practicing that your ronde, actually there's still rotation happening from the double reverse. So you've got a little rotational energy as you drop. So you're not completely square and starting down. So you're going to be dropping and rotating as you swing the leg out. And I'm correct that I can't turn with my bare feet. Let's try it on the run here. So you're up. You still have rotation. You can practice that little motion of rotating your feet and allowing the dropping action then to take place. So if I dance the double reverse spin, you're turning on the right foot and you continue to turn as you drop. Now here's something to be aware of. When the lady completes her heel turn and finishes her cross, she has a little cheat or weight change that the man doesn't have. Because it's the same foot figure, we're both moving to the right foot to Ronde to the left. She's in her cross, and in that rotation of the body, she'll move her to transfer her weight so that she can dance her ronde, and then she'll come through into the reverse pivot. So the lady does not have the same steps as the man. The man is already on his right foot, and as he rotates his body, he moves her weight onto the free foot. And then you use each other's energy and bodies to create the same foot ronde. We're going to try to keep our centers together. I didn't mention the rise action, which is very important. So as the gentleman, we're at the top of the double reverse spin. We're continuing our turn, dancing the ronde, and then feeding the lady, and now I've dropped at that moment. I'm going to be elevating here as I close my girl, pulling the toe back, and then lowering at the end of the step. One of the problems we were having is doing the ronde up instead of the ronde down and then up. So then looking again at the lady's part, she's done her cross. She has a weight change here. Now where that foot lands is going to depend a lot on how the bodies are working together. She simply needs to land it underneath her shoulder blade so that she's balanced and swing the leg around. Same thing, bringing it under, turning as much as the man indicates. She does not change her weight. She rises on her right foot and slips her left foot in. So as you can imagine now, as we're looking at pieces and parts, there's some leverage going on between the partners. We will need to use each other's bodies. It's extremely difficult to do this alone, and particularly for the ladies, because we do need the support of the bodies. So now that we understand the pieces, you've been working double reverse spin for a while. Taking the double reverse spin into the bombshell, you need to know the components well enough that as you complete the double reverse spin, you can drop right into the ronde. Now before we wrap that up, we had some issues that had to do with the posture and the wobbling. So we've got some leverage here, we've got more dynamics. Whenever we have more dynamics, we need to use each other's bodies. We need to reinforce things in our body. We talked about that last week with the way we use our back muscles in opposition to the legs. So when you're doing the ronde and then you're picking up from the drop action to the rise action, you need to be engaged again around the core area, the seat muscles, the inner thighs, the back of the thighs, so that when you're rising, there's a squeezing of the thighs together. Now, Marcus talked about keeping the feet under the body on his video, and there's a lot of very good points on there. Just keep going back and watching it as you develop this. You've got to have those core muscles working. These are things you can't see on the outside, you just see the body stable. So we found that sometimes the muscles in the back that control your arms, the ones we talked about last week, sometimes you let them go. I see that left arm going forward in the back, rounding again. So I need to control my upper body, I need to control my frame, I need to use my upper body to help me in the rotation, but also need to support the lower torso. The pelvic floor muscles need to be lifted, the leg muscles need to be closed together. You also need to make sure that the weight of your head is up over your spine and that you're carrying your head weight with you. When you complete the pivot, in order to be straight, you actually have to think back because there's that natural tendency to go forward. So keep feeding from underneath here. Now the one video you watched, the couple was dancing an open telemark after the bombshell. Marcus was dancing a contra check. This takes a lot of skill, so we're not going to go there. In your little practice space, it's best for you to dance a hover telemark because you don't have room to do the open telemark and continue that way. And we need a little bit more turn. So they're making a full turn there in order to put the telemark in. So we won't do that until we work up to it. So be aware of your alignment, but be aware as you put these extra dynamics of turn, throwing the leg around, you're going to have to be more engaged through the core muscles, underneath the rib cage, the back, a little more firmness through the frame. And in the end, it's actually easier to dance with a partner if we both know what we're doing, because we can use each other's bodies. So I almost forgot to talk about the muscles, so that's really important that you think about that freedom in the hip joint, the alignment over the standing leg, head weight, making sure it's not wobbling, and finishing with the frame engaged so the left arm is not falling forward. All right, so this was a big one to bite off, but you're making good progress with it, and we'll see how it's going next week.